The following session was recorded live in St. Louis, Missouri for the 2001 Annual International Association of Square Dance Callers. This is tape number 25, Partners, Dealing with People.
Okay, I think all of you got it straight. This is the partner session, Dealing with People. We've been changed at least twice, if not 3 times, so if you're in the wrong place, I won't be offended if you leave. It is Dealing with People. I'm Kathy Davenport. And we have our panelists, Gail Seastrom from California and Betty Vaile from Indiana and Arizona, or just Indiana? Well, I caught you in Arizona. That's why I wasn't sure which way was home. And we're going to let Betty get started here.
Hello. Can you hear me? I have a soft voice. You can't hear me? Yeah, I probably have to give me more volume. I try, but I guess I have a grandmother's voice. It doesn't carry very well. Even my singing voice, I say it's a grandmother's voice. I love to sing to the grandbabies and now the great-grandbabies. We appreciate your coming, and we're going to talk about dealing with people, and we want your ideas and your input. To work with people successfully, first you must like people and enjoy working with them, and we kind of assume that you all do, or you wouldn't be a spouse or a leader in the square dance activity. The lists that you've been given are just some ideas, and we've tried to leave room that you could fill in anything that you hear that you'd like to make note on. We're going to start out with talking about attitude, because your attitude, it doesn't matter the attitude of the person you're dealing with. If you don't have the proper attitude, then it's a lost cause from the beginning. So in discussing your attitude, it's very important to let people know that you are genuine in your interest in them and whatever is being discussed, in being cordial. And if you're not, people can quickly sense that you're not. Was I too close to the mic? Oh. Okay, coming through now. Okay. Okay, well, we're discussing attitudes, and yours specifically to start with, because that is most important. One thing that people know that you're genuine, they can tell by the way you respond to them. If you're just totally disinterested and let your eyes wander around the room and so forth, that's a clue to them that they're wasting their time in talking to you, and chances are they're going to withhold some of their feelings at that time. Anything negative that you say is a definite cold water on the situation. So try to be positive in your thoughts before you say anything. Of course, be respectful. We all need to treat others the way we want them to treat us. And if we keep that thought in mind, then chances are our reactions, our time of giving to this person or group of persons is going to be a more positive situation. Gail's going to talk more about our responses to people as we go along. One thing I mentioned was never say off-the-cuff opinions. People, when they talk, to begin with, they're not really interested in your opinion. They're interested in expressing themselves. And so be sure that you give them time to do that, and again, that you listen thoroughly so that you understand for sure what they're saying, because a lot of times they won't say what's really bothering them. But if you listen closely and practice analyzing what people are actually saying, you often can come up with the real culprit or the real thought in their mind of what they're trying to express. And, of course, we've mentioned about the pleasant attitude. Put on a happy face. If it doesn't help the conversation or the situation, at least it's going to help you. It's going to calm you down and make you more adaptable to the conversation. Never put down what another person says by your actions as well as your words. Make sure that you give them a chance to listen to their thoughts. We often get involved in our own paradigm. I don't know whether you know what the word paradigm means, but it means your habits. It's an enclosure of your thoughts, of your ideas. We used to use as an example in our leadership seminars that you lose a lot of ideas, good ideas, by looking at things in a box. You have habits. You form habits when you get up in the morning. You have a routine that you follow. And that's good because we need organization in order to keep our lives fruitful. But if you think, this is the way to do it, this is the only way to do it, because you've never looked at it from another perspective, that's not good. Because you're missing some wonderful thoughts and ideas and maybe some things for square dancing that we never thought about. I think they've used the terms in some of the sessions about looking at things from a different way. Don't think that an idea is impossible, but look at it as, well, what could we do with this idea? Every idea, as every person, has a good side. And let's look for that and weigh it in our minds. Again, don't be too quick to answer. And I hope I'm not covering too many things here. Well, Gail and I were just discussing before we started that she's from a metropolitan area, I'm from a rural area, and there have to be different ways to deal with people in those two areas because you have different needs. Rural people don't understand the same terminology as a metropolitan area, and vice versa. The metropolitan area doesn't realize some of the difficulties that we have when you have space involved. Your dancers may all be in the same city. It may be the same number of miles between people, but the situation is different, so therefore the needs are different. So I think I'll stop right here before I say too much and let Gail have a turn.
One might think I'm really talkative, and they're really right. When I was first asked to do this, Kathy said something to me about dealing with difficult people. We all know how to deal with nice people. That's easy. The hard part is dealing with someone who's difficult. And a difficult person can be a coworker, a supervisor, neighbors, in-laws, or even your partner or spouse. Quite frequently not when we want them to be. And I think the most important thing when someone is being difficult is to recognize that they really want to be heard. They really want you to hear what they're saying. So probably the most important thing that we can develop as people that have to deal with someone difficult is learning to listen and listen actively. And there are several ways to do that, and probably the most productive way is when someone is saying something to you and they're just letting it out, is to mirror what they're saying to you and say, oh, you sound really angry. This must be very frustrating to you. I can understand why this would bother you. Now, you've not accepted any blame. You've not said, I'm sorry. You've simply mirrored. And you'll just watch all of a sudden they start really kind of deflate a little bit, and they become a little bit more manageable. So when you are in a situation, and it can be a clerk in a store, it can be your supervisor, it can be someone you have to manage yourself, it can be your children. And believe it or not, if you just say to them, you know, that it really sounded like you had a tough day today. And touching is really important, even though sometimes they're not very touchable. It's really important to do that. And you're going to fulfill their desire to be heard. And so if you can actually try to mirror that person rather than getting defensive, because it's usually not a personal affront. They are just to that level of frustration that it has to come out. So the important thing is for you to just kind of step back a little bit and mirror what they're saying. Sometimes it's not even important to say you sound very frustrated. You can say, oh, yeah, I understand. And that's enough. And eventually they wind down enough that we can get to what the problem is and help them solve it. Most often they know what they want to do. They just want someone to listen to them really badly. So the easiest way to do that is just to agree with them, and it disarms them immediately. So you might want to keep that in mind. It's really kind of important to listen to the message that someone is sending you when they get upset or they're angry or difficult to deal with. And studies show that in terms of what people hear when we're trying to talk to them when they're difficult, is they only hear 7% of our words. 23% hear the tone of our voice. 35% see our facial expression, and 35% see our body language. And body language is really, really important. And how many people have tried to talk to someone who's like this? They're really not listening. They're so closed. But if you do it right, eventually they open up. And if you're talking to someone and they're leaning forward in their chair, their arms are open, you look really receptive here in the red jacket. You are hearing everything I'm saying. So I'm going to be looking right at you. But it's human nature. Even crossing your legs at times can be sort of a negative. It is a habit. And it doesn't necessarily connote that you're angry or that you're closed to what I'm saying. But if you start to realize people's body language and you look how they're responding to you or how they approach you when they're angry, it helps you sort of get into the situation and handle them a little bit easier. So you might think about that. And as I said, body language is very important. One of the things that I do is I work in Mike's office, and Mike is a dentist, so you can certainly imagine that no one is really happy to be there. They're always really happy to leave, but no one's really happy to go. We have actually we kind of call our office a bowling alley because it has a very long hallway. And we say our patients do a personality change walking down the hallway to the operatory, and they're a different person when we seat them and start to work on them, and then they do the change again walking back out. So no one is ever happy to be there. And so I try very hard to, when I seat them in the chair, I don't lay them back. I don't put them in a vulnerable position. I sit in my chair and I get eye level to eye level with them, and I speak to them and I listen to them. We sort of try to recognize emotional flooding in our office because we have to give them information not only about an uncomfortable situation, maybe they're in pain, and then we have to tell them how much it's going to cost them to get them out of that uncomfortable situation. And then they're emotionally flooded. So we have to really listen to what they're saying. We have to really watch their body. We have to understand that they need to tell us something, and when they're done telling us, then they're ready to hear what we have to say. So it's important for us to watch not only how their body unfolds or folds in to itself and be aware of those kind of signs. So if it's not something that you've been aware of before, you might sort of try to watch it. And it's interesting in a group to watch how everybody sort of reacts. I can see people now starting to lean forward a little bit. Some of you are leaning back and not listening at all, and that's okay. But it is important to watch that, and it is a really effective tool if you can employ it, and we use it quite a bit. Also keep in mind that people are very visual. They really respond to what they see. Most often they respond visually before they respond to what they hear. So how we approach people with a smile, with a handshake, with eye contact. I have a tendency to sort of zone out if I'm not really in the conversation, which is really a terrible trait, but I do. And, it's kind of like a whole flock went by and I haven't heard anything. So I have to concentrate, and very often I'll touch the person that is talking so that I'm really connected to them, and they know that I'm listening to what they're saying. And it is a shortcoming of mine, but it's something I work on all the time. And if you can give someone their full attention and use their name, people love to hear their name. And if you can say, Kathy, you really sound upset. I haven't said, I'm really sorry, I screwed up, I haven't done anything. I've just said, you really sound upset. And all of a sudden you go, yeah, I really am. And it just deflates the whole situation. It's much easier to sort of gain their confidence and get past the difficult part of it. I would like to think that we all live by that axiom our mothers taught us, that if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. But that's not true. I mean, sometimes it comes in my head and out my mouth before I even think about it. I like to think of myself as being assertive, not being aggressive, and there is a big difference. And you're shaking your head. There's nothing wrong with being assertive, is there? And nothing is won through aggression. Absolutely none. I don't think anybody is a winner when somebody comes at them 90 miles an hour. I picked up a thing from a consulting company about 12 ways to handle insults, and I think some of them are kind of interesting, and it pertains to the business world, and I think that a session like this would benefit you in the business world or at a dance or at home or in any of your relationships with people. And one of them says, do not automatically assume that you've been criticized. And there are several different kinds of personality traits, but one of the traits that runs through all the different personalities is that nobody likes to feel that they're at fault or that they've done something wrong. So immediately when we hear something, we go, we really take it to heart. So you need to sort of step back from things and not take things quite so personally, and don't assume that you've been criticized. Perhaps no harm was intended at all. Stop criticizing others. You give no excuse to attack anybody, and you have to be as kind and helpful as possible, which we all try to do. Ask questions. If you're not sure about something that somebody's very upset about, even if you weren't there, you're not at fault, but maybe you're sort of facilitating getting over a bumpy patch, ask lots of questions, get to the root of what's really bothering somebody. This is the one that works a lot for me. Exercise, work up a good sweat. When I'm really ticked off, I walk. And sometimes even run. And the people in the neighborhood finally said, God, you're just a health freak. I said, no, I'm just having a rough patch in my life, because I just go out the door and walk it off, because it's easier for me. My father was full Italian, my mother was full Irish, so you can imagine what kind of temper I have. And like I said, it comes in my head and out my mouth. So a lot of times now I go, okay, just swallow it and go for a walk, and that kind of helps me a lot. If a person means you more harm than good in the relationship, I really believe that life is too short to spend a lot of energy with negative people. It truly is, but that's a personal opinion. So if a critic is right, agree with their comment and say so. You're right. I didn't realize I'd made a mistake or whatever. It's okay to admit making a mistake. And ask someone if you've upset them. I don't like to feel that I've hurt anybody's feelings. I would never do it on purpose, but very often I've said to someone, have I said something that's upset you? And all of a sudden they realize if it's their behavior, and they go, oh, no, you haven't at all, and I'm really sorry. So it's okay to say, have I upset you? Did I say something? Did I do something that, just made you crosswise with me? Stop being so touchy. Let's not take everything so personal. This is sort of a repeat. Turn any situation like this to your advantage. See if there's any way you can use the comment to improve yourself. Very often, people don't know how to give constructive criticism. They only know how to give negative criticism. And that's not all that bad either. That can be productive if you really want to use it to your advantage. So you might think about that. Here's a very important, they say, members of the U.S. Congress frequently smear each other in public. Use the line many politicians like to use, which is, I respect you too much to respond to that. Or when someone asks me something that I think is absolutely none of their business, I'll say, and why do you ask? And they go, blah, blah, never mind. So it's okay. You don't have to answer everything. You really, truly don't. List the good things a person has done for you before you take action. Has anybody ever read articles or something that says, if you're really upset, write it down in a letter and don't mail it, put it away? I do that a lot. To myself at times too, because it gets it out. It gets the anger out. That's really negative vibrations. We really don't need to waste our energy on that. And sometimes just getting it down on paper, put it in the drawer. I mean, really makes a good laugh about a week later because you've cooled down and seen the whole situation for what it's worth. So and in particular, if you're thinking of cutting somebody out of your life, think about what they bring to your life, not that one day that really sets you off about them, because most often there's more good things about that person than bad. And insults are comical when they're utterly and completely false. If I had to live up to all the rumors about me, I would be amazing. Really. So, I just don't put much credence to them. kind of goes back to if I've done something to upset somebody, because that's usually where criticism starts. Somebody is upset with you, or there is a certain amount of jealousy and those kind of things. And that's unfortunate, but that does happen. So don't really pay much attention to it if it's not true. It's really the best way to handle it. And I could go on forever, but that's really just about all that I have to say. We're going to pass the microphone a little bit, and we're hoping that you'll ask questions about specific situations or something that has occurred to you that you'd like to share about how you handled a difficult situation. Is that your plan? Okay. Does anybody have anything to volunteer? Okay. Perfect.
Okay, we have a microphone so that you can stay in your seats, because that seems to work a little better. So who was the first person?
This isn't really how to deal with difficult people. My question is, when you work all day answering phones and dealing with difficult people all day, and then you have to go with your husband or partner to a dance and be all smiles and friendly and talk to people, when all you want to do is sit in the car under a street light and read a book. What do you do besides sit in your car and read a book?
I don't even get in the car.
My husband doesn't drive. I have to take him to the dance.
Oh, well, now that's a good point. Does he have a problem that you sit in the car and read?
No, but I feel very guilty. Because,
well, you know
of course, everybody pulls in, they park next to me, they say, "Oh, hi, Linda, how are you?" And then they see me with my book, and they know that I'd rather sit there than go talk to them.
Well, then I would go to the library. But, and you know, that's a very good question, because you are in a position where you have a responsibility, and I'm sure you don't mind driving. And I think that they need to understand that. You know, guilt is sort of a cup of tea that only you can drink. Anybody can pour it for you, but only you can drink it. But I drank it for a lot of years until I finally decided that I don't need to be there all the time. And when I'm not at my best, that's not the place for me to be. So if you're looking for support, I see there's nothing wrong with sitting in your car and reading a book, but you might consider just dropping off and say, "Have a nice day, honey. See you after the dance," and maybe go to a library or go to something, or come back after everybody has arrived for the dance and then park. But there are times you just really don't want to be at the dance. Am I correct? Oh, yes. See?
Yes, very definitely.
Yeah, Betty.
I guess I'm from the older school, and I grew up in depression times and hardship times, and there have been times in my life when there have been crises at home. I had a father who was bedfast for 24 months, and much of that time he was not in our home, but my parents lived right next to us, and they needed our help, and I could not bow out of that situation for a year and a half. And so I found I became a much stronger person. I learned to turn it off. And if I hadn't gotten out and gone with my husband during some of those times, I think I would have been very weak and probably more emotional about the situation. But in going and becoming part of the joy that was supposed to be there and helping to create it, I created some for myself, and I went home in better condition to face the hardships that were at home. That's just my opinion.
I'll just stand up and talk here. I guess you do have some difficult situations in square dancing, but I didn't think so. I thought that there's a lot of nice people out there. If you're in the industry I am, you meet up with a lot of enraged people. I work at the airport. and I'm a gate agent, so you can imagine what I meet up with. And so we've had to deal with very difficult situations. There is one point where you don't have to put up with anything. We deal with them, we listen to them, and we try to help them as much as possible, but then there are certain conditions where you just don't have to put up. When they start to swear at you, you don't have to put up with the abuse. You don't have to put up with abuse. That point, I turn off my computer and I walk away because they've gone past the point of any reasoning. You can't deal with them at all. That happened to me in the early stages when I first started to work at the airport for the airlines, and it was my first year, and of course, you get all rattled and things. But the passenger came up, and she's really upset, so I'm trying to help her, trying to listen to her and get the proper information so I can help rebook her and get her all settled and everything. But then she starts using abusive language, and then I thought, that's it. Turn off the computer, walked away. I left my partner right next to me. She's got a line, but I figured, well, she can do with it okay. And then I came back 20 minutes later, and the line was gone. And I said to her, I'm so sorry I left you, but I just had to leave. And I said, what happened to that lady? And she said, oh, she just got into my line, and when she came up to me, she was the nicest person. I was able to help her. So, people just forget it. I mean, it's like they've gone off the board, and you can't do anything for them. They've become abusive, and the next step is they're going to be physically abusive. So you need to stop it there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is it still on? It comes and goes. Anyhow, Mary Napi, California, about... All my switches are open. Okay. About not feeling like you want to go. I sometimes feel better after I'm there. So you do have to kind of swallow hard and keep quiet and just go through the function of getting there. And then once I'm in the environment and there's enough people and activity and music and humor and stuff around you, it kind of puts you back on key. And also I've done the same thing. I just dropped my husband off and said, see ya, and go off and do something else that's more important to me at that time and it's a burden on my heart that I need to deal with and not leave it undone. So you can do both ways. But I also find that once I'm in the environment, there's a whole lot of other people that'll start feeding to my need, that are there to meet my needs. And then once you get more relaxed with it, or just stand perfectly still and smile and let the world go around you, that you're standing there, you're an outfit, you are participating just by being there, saying nothing, just smile, and they'll come find you. There's been 3 ways I've done that, so it can be done, and sometimes it's difficult and unpleasant, but after it's underway, it's kind of okay.
I really believe that what you're willing to give out, it'll come back to you, and sometimes it comes back to you even when you don't put anything out there. I did a partners seminar in Washington State for their National Federation. It was the first time they'd had a partner session, so every caller's partner was there. Like I had some gospel to dispel, which was not true. But I started it by asking how many of them had a hobby that they participated in 2 to 3, 4, 5 times a week, and it took about 3 to 4 hours, and they expected their spouse to come every time they went and did this, whether their spouse was interested or not, or had any choice in the decision of this hobby or anything like that. And they said, well, none of them, and all their partners, they were all dancers before, their callers, their partners had all taken up calling, and it was assumed that they would be there. And that was not part of the decision process to become a caller. That was just part of what they thought came with the equipment, that you were just going to go. There was going to be a partner attached to the other part of the equipment. So, it is true that when you do go to a dance, you usually get back a lot of energy, positive energy. But there are times that our life kind of interferes. There's other things to do. You probably have put something off to get your partner ready to go to the dance, to make the meal, to get the clothes ready, or whatever it is that you participate in to get your partner ready to go to the dance and do his best or her best. So you may have sort of put something of yours that needs to be done. Most of us work. How many in this room all work full time? Oh, bless your hearts. I would like to be married to your husband. No, I actually have my own business, but I also work in my husband's business. So life is really busy, and it took a long time for me to realize that what I do is important too. I think that what he does is important. I'm not certainly casting any negative thing on that at all. But I did put a lot of energy into his calling and to getting him through school and everything for a very long time. And finally I said, the kids don't really need me anymore. I'm sort of like a consultant. They're 23 and 18, so they just kind of run things by me now. They don't ask. They just sort of do them. So I, have time now to sort of strike off on my own. It is important, and it caused some changes in our life for me to realize that I didn't have to be there, and for him to realize that I didn't have to be there. So when you do go, you really need to put your best foot forward. Obviously, everything that you do is a reflection on the caller that's there, and it helps to make for a better dance.
Something that I know... Something that we often tell our dancers, that one of the great things about square dancing is that when you're there, you can't think about anything else. You have to pay attention. I mean, it's a totally different environment than whatever, unless you work full-time in dance, some kind of dance, and then go square dancing at night. It's just so totally different from anything else you do. You can forget about everything else. I mean, the problems might still be waiting for you when you get back home, but for these 2.5 hours, you can just forget about it and have a good time. And
except
kind
if you're
of
in the
relax.
unique position of being a caller's spouse, there is a lot of time to think about things, because there are many evenings that we aren't dancing. And I remember someone saying to me, "How come you don't dance advance?" I said, "So what, do I get it by osmosis? I watch you for 16 weeks and now I should be able to do this?" We do a lot of watching. We do a lot of dancing too. Don't misunderstand us. But there are many evenings that we warm a lot of chairs. Am I correct? Thank you. Yeah. Well, you're very fortunate. You're very fortunate, and it depends on where you go. We are in Southern California. It's a guest caller format, so we are not at the same place every time we call. We're at a different place. Some clubs go out of their way to make sure that the caller's wife is dancing. Many of them do not. So it becomes a very long evening, and when everyone's dancing, there isn't anyone to speak, to talk with. There isn't a lot of conversation. So there are nights that we have a lot of time to think.
Yeah, that's particularly my case. I have arthritis in my knees, and I can't dance a lot of the evenings. So I go in knowing that I'm not going to dance, and I'm going to sit in the corner and do cross-stitch or crocheting or something, and talk to people between tips, and that's when it gets really, really old.
How do some of you feel about doing needlework or reading a book at a dance? Does anybody have an opinion about that?
Well, I've tried it, and I don't feel comfortable with it. People think you don't want to talk to them, and they don't come up to dance. Now, if you're in the situation like Linda is, where she's not dancing and this is the norm, obviously people have come to know that Linda is very happy to talk to them. She just isn't going to be dancing, so that's probably a different thing. But on occasion I've taken crocheting when I really needed to get something done, and I just really feel, because nobody feels like they can ask me to dance. I always have something simple. I can throw it down on the chair. I can dance. But I have given it up. I don't like it.
I guess I like to. Is it on? Am I on? All right. I like to feel a part of the crowd. I guess I need that too, because I am and have been a stay-at-home mom and wife, and I've been so busy. I don't know how I would ever have had time for a full-time job. I managed to keep busy, and so I like to be busy at the dance. And if I won't repeat the other. But anyway, I'm a good listener, and people love, as you said, to talk and talk about themselves. And so sometimes all you have to do to entertain yourself or to occupy your time is to ask one of the dancers who is also sitting with you, or go sit by them and ask them how they are, or how's the kids, or if you know there's a problem in the family or something, ask about it, and they'll open up and they'll entertain you for some time. And now that might be boring to some of you. I don't know. It's not to me, because my husband and I have been around long enough. We're mom and dad to everybody. Some of the dancers who are about the same age that we are call us mom and dad. And I take it as a compliment. I hope it is. But that's just another thought in the situation, that you might learn a lot from some of the things that people say, that you could pass on to your husband, that might comments about him, or maybe about their interests, that are a reflection on something that he's doing in his calling that they do or don't like, where they wouldn't maybe come out and say it directly. They might give you an idea of something that might be bothering them, that might really help his career.
On the same vein, you might learn more than you really want to know. Anybody ever been in that position where someone really unloaded on you and you thought, what, do I have a face that says, tell me everything about you? And we are sort of like a sponge sometimes, and we have to just listen. And that's where your active listening comes in. You don't have to, you just, yeah, you just look at them in the eye. They're not asking for you to make an opinion or give them a solution. They just want you to listen. But it's interesting, because one of your comments was not to gossip. Well, we hear really amazing things, don't we? More than we really want to hear. So I mean, it's kind of a dichotomy that we shouldn't gossip, but they don't have any problem telling us things we really don't even want to know. So
just a couple of comments. I was listening to the lady over here that said about reading at the dance. Many years ago, we had a caller, a well-known caller, that drove like 2 hours to come in. He had a closed club, and his wife would come with him. And she came and she read. We happened to be leaders, Roundance leaders at the time at her club, and I thought, wow, is she stuck up. And the reason she drove is because she did not want him. She came with him because it was a 2-hour drive down and a 2-hour ride home, and she did not want him alone in the car. And there were many nights that she did not want to be there. She was also going to school, taking some classes, and she would come in with her book, and she would position herself in the same place in the hall every time she came with her book. And after a few times, people realized that she was there for that purpose. She wanted to be there, but she needed to accomplish something, and she couldn't sit in her car because we were in the winter cold, so she had to come in with her book. And after a while, the people adjusted to that, and when we discovered that she wasn't reading a book some night, everybody was talking with her, and everybody just believed that it was better to have her there, and she also did, to come and read. She put it away. And as far as reading or doing stuff at a group, we had a weekly group, and I came into that activity with a well-known caller, and I was told all the things that partners probably should do at dances. So I decided, I'm brand new at this, and I better not put him down, so I'll just sit there and watch the people. I'm a people person, and I can work with that. So one year I thought, well, maybe I'll do a little crafty thing. I'm not really crafty. So I bought it. I'll never forget it. It's still hanging on my door, and hangs on my door every Christmas. I bought this kit to make a wreath. And I decided this would be a great thing to do at the dance. And I thought, oh, should I do this? Am I supposed to do this? And I didn't know what to do, but I said, I'm going to do it. Well, I'm going to tell you, it was one of the best things that I have ever done. Everybody, even the men, would come up, how far are you now? And we'd get in these big conversations, and to the point where Jim would say, would you just let me have my dancers back a while so I can teach them something? And I haven't done much since, and it was the first crafty thing I've done. It'll be a great memory, and hangs on my door every Christmas, this wreath that I made with all these people update every week, was I doing okay? So I think you, in some ways, have to judge for yourself what is comfortable.
It is a judgment call.
It is a judgment call, and I don't know whether she's in a position that she's in a club, the same people every week. Like you said, yours are different. Our groups were the same group week after week, so they got to know me, and I got to know them. And so you you adjust to each other's things that you do. So I don't know whether that's any help to you or not. I mean, I'm sure that going there and bringing a book to read, if it's the same people all the time, will say, well, know your reasoning why you have to be there. And if you're comfortable reading, I think they'll adjust to that and won't feel put down with it at all, if that is what you're thinking about.
You know, the most important thing is to find your own comfort zone. You know, everybody else will adjust around us.
And what was that, Al?
We had a comment from the peanut gallery over here that said,
Al, did you put that on the tape?
You're reading a different book each time, that you're not reading the same book every time. And it helps if you turn it right side up, too. So.
Years ago, Gail said something that I've always remembered. Thou shalt not should on me. First of all, I didn't understand the should. And then I realized what you said. Don't let other people put guilt on you. Don't take guilt on your own shoulders. If you can't dance, you can still look up and look at the dancers every now and then. But reading, I used to take children. When I taught kindergarten, I was always cutting things out at the dance, and people would say, "You cut funny," because I'm left-handed. But well, you cut them out. I mean, I only have to get 35 apples cut out before the end of the dance, and that sort of thing. They as Joanne said, they enjoy counteracting to me too.
Sometimes if you're just sitting there, there's no entree. When you're doing something, that gives them the opportunity to approach you. And so in a lot of ways, that's very effective. So if you have a hard time breaking the ice, you might think about doing something crafty or something unusual that's going to bring them to you. So you might consider that.
I'm sure everybody else has something else to say.
You know, what you said about listening to people is so true. Tell you about another experience I had. It was just a couple of weeks ago, and we had a winter storm that went. I work at O'Hare in Chicago. I know we have lots of delays and things. I mean, I think you've heard about it or read about it. But no, was a little old lady, something like you. Anyway, she came through our gate, and she was working with this other gal. We had a lot of people that we had to take care of. So she was down at the end of the counter, and this gal is new, that was trying to help her. And the gal comes down to me. I'm at the first position, and she says, I have to do this, and, how do I do this? And I said, okay, go look into her PNR and see what she was on and rebook her. So she goes back down to the end of the counter, and then the lady comes back later on. She goes, she's not helping me. She's not taking care of me. Well, it's, when you're brand new and you're not sure of yourself, it comes across like she's not really caring. It's not like she was trying. I mean, she was really trying to help this lady. So, but I had to finish what I was doing, and I finished it. And of course, there's a counter. And what I did is I came across the counter to come close to her. So, I'm actually trying to, and I leaned forward, and I said, well, what is the problem? Well, she's not helping me. She's not listening to me. All she wanted was somebody to listen to her. So I listened to her problem, and I said, you know what? Let me see what I can do. So I went in. I had her rebooked. I had her hotel for her, and, took care of her and everything. But that's all it takes.
All you have to do is listen.
Yeah, listen. Leaning for, it's just a personal touch. I mean, she was scared. She was actually scared. I mean, she's there by herself. And that's all it takes. It's
usually when someone
thing.
is difficult, it's because they're frightened or they're uneasy in a
Right.
situation. I have a great airline story to tell, too, about the difference between assertive and aggressive. And it was actually on our way to a CALLERLAB convention. And all of you know when you get to the airport to come to CALLERLAB, it's spring break, and it's always really crowded no matter what. We were coming to New Orleans, and Mike said, we drove up to the airport. Mike said, oh my God, they're coming out the doors. They were lined up on the sidewalk, and he said, I'll just drop you off. I'll go park the car in long term. You just go in, check the bags. I'll meet you at the gate. And this was long before you had to go through all the security stuff. I said, no problem. So I'm standing on the sidewalk. I'm standing waiting for somebody to check my bags, and everybody's getting angry and angry. And finally I just I said, I have $20 for the first guy that wants to check these bags. Well, I checked my bags. I went up to the gate, and I'm waiting, and everybody else is like, look, why didn't I think of that? You know, so I'm standing at the gate, and I'm waiting. They're starting to call the passengers on and everything, and there was a nice little flight attendant standing by the gate, and I said, are you taking this flight? And she said, yes. I said, oh, good. Then we'll be going together because we're not leaving till my husband gets here.
This inside one of the cassette.
Just held on. She laughed and laughed and laughed. And she kept saying, you're really serious? I said, I really am. And so finally she said, and they're like the last few passengers are straggling on. Mike's still not there. I still have a hold of her, and I'm smiling at everybody that's going by. And she said, listen, I won't close the door. She said, just go see if he's coming. I said, you promise? She said, I swear to God. So I went running this way, and Mike obviously came up the other way, gets to the gate. He says, am I too late? And she says, no, is your wife about this high, have brown hair? And he says, yeah, obviously you've met her. She says, oh yeah, we're going together to New Orleans. So people have been waiting to leave. Obviously, they had to open the flight door to let us in, and we get on, and our friends are on there, and they said, oh, my God, were we waiting for you? And I said, yep. And so we get on the plane. It starts to taxi down the runway, and the plane stops. And here comes a luggage cart with 2 bags on them. They're mine. And my friend turns around, she says, I don't care where we go in New Orleans. I am going with you. Because she says, obviously, you have some kind of pull. I said, no, but that was, we needed to get on this plane, and that was it. And she said, I can't believe you did. She says, most people would have been so angry. So there is a way to disarm a situation and get things accomplished that you need to have done, and they don't even realize that you're doing it. So you might consider kind of being a little funny. It comes naturally to me, so. You know what? I have to tell you that there's only about 3 times I've been able to whistle like that. Once was at the airport, and once was sitting on the dais at a big banquet. I went, and it just went, I went, oh my God. And Mike said, did you do that? And I said, yes. I can't whistle like that. But so only twice in my life have I been able to do that. One of them was a good time.
She just mentioned humor, and the importance of humor goes a long way. And humor needs to be used a lot to diffuse this and to change that, and for your own attitude as well. Many things, the situation looks hopeless, but when you look back at it, you can, look at it in a humorous way and remember it in a humorous way. Though at the moment it took place, it was unpleasant in the worst way. But the humor part of it carries you a long way, and it takes you through some real bumpy spots.
And something that came up the last time that we had this type of a session was not to let things simmer. If you do have a problem with someone, resolve it. Don't let it go for days or weeks or months, because that can lead you into a lot of problems. We had someone last time tell us about the fact that she had just decided to take care of an issue that she had had with a dancer, and that dancer died in the night, so she never got to take care of and solve the issue, and she's still living with that. So don't let things simmer. Take care of them, deal with them, resolve it.
It's probably no different than saying I love you. You don't ever want to miss a chance to do that either. It's like when your family leaves, you never leave the house without saying goodbye. And it's the same way when you're angry, because it is really, it contributes to so much unhealthy issues. And I think it's important that we take good care of ourselves, body and soul. And that's part of it, is getting rid of that kind of baggage and to live your life in a way that you don't carry a whole lot of it around, and it makes life a whole lot simpler. And it gets easier each time. Hopefully we don't keep stepping in it, but sometimes you do, and unintentionally. So the best way is just to approach someone and clear the air and make things as right as possible as soon as you can. If you raise your hand and wave at anybody in the room, we take the microphone to you, so you want to be really careful when you do that. Okay.
But it looks like Al wants you to say something.
You might have to take a few minutes because there's a notation on the paper that I read, and it says, he who angers you, or they who anger you, control you. And so you might have to just walk away for a little bit and take a deep breath, and then put yourself together, and then, like, face it soon, that same evening, and try to work it out. Even always be willing to say, I'm sorry, if you if you think that's going to be a healing balm, because you know, what does it cost you to say I'm sorry? And it doesn't cost you a thing to smile. It only takes 14 muscles to smile and 43 to frown. So why waste all that energy frowning when you can smile?
And you may even have to put it off till the next day, because you may not be able to deal with it even that night. The situation I'm talking about, I assume lasted weeks or months, and so, you know, you may still need to wait till tomorrow or the next day to resolve it. You have to be comfortable in yourself too.
There was a situation, I learned from it too, because in the course of doing your job or whatever you're doing, you kind of get, sometimes you forget about the people you're dealing with. And I was in a situation where I'm trying to check a long line, right? Trying to check in everybody with, you know, really quick answers, and, you know, ask them the security questions and check them in, give them their boarding passes and everything, because I want to get the line down. Well, you kind of forget people. There was a gal that came through, and she thought I was being callous and uncaring and mean. That's what she said. But then she wanted to talk to the supervisor, and I said, okay, fine, I'll talk to the supervisor. She stood on the side. Then she wanted my name. I said, here's my name. She goes, I want your last name too. I said, you don't need it. Puts her off even more. And so anyway, she's on the side. I call the supervisor, and then I'm doing all the other passengers. We got the line down, and I talked to the supervisor. I said, you know, she's really upset. She just wants to talk to a supervisor. What does she want? I said, oh, no, but she wants to talk to a supervisor. Oh, well, try to talk to her. I'm busy with something. Okay. So I click off, and then I thought about it a little bit. And so I brought her to the side, and I said, I want to talk to you. And so I told her, I said, I'm really sorry about how you feel. I said, but you know, we did all we could. And she says, you know, you were being really mean. You're just being mean. And she got close to tears. I mean, she was hurt that I really didn't listen to her and gave her the personal attention she wanted. That's all she wanted. It's just to listen and feel a little empathy for her situation. And I forgot myself in that, you know. So I talked to her. I said, you know, I didn't really mean to be mean. I said, I'm sorry if I came across it like that, but I'm just trying to help all the passengers here, and I was trying to be too expedient, and I'm sorry if you felt that way. And you know, she calmed down a little, and she says, well, I just wanted you to know that I didn't feel like you were really helping me. Now, I did help her, but really, I didn't help her. You know what I mean? So I apologized, and I talked to her, and she walked away feeling a little better. She was a young girl, you know. And sometimes when you feel insecure, little things like this upset you more than anything. It becomes a problem for you instead of for her. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments, questions?
I would like to ask, is this even on? I would like to ask if anyone in here really runs into difficult people at their dances.
She's no longer in our club, but it was a it was a member of our club, and that year she was president. She was the last choice to be president. I was on the nominating committee, and nobody else would take the job but her. And I grew to know her, but why? I never knew why she was like she was, but she was very dominating. Nobody else's opinion was of much value but her. She always wanted to take over and control everybody else's committee. She she's finally dropped out, and I'm glad. I used to get knots in my stomach every board meeting because just didn't, and everybody else has had hurt feelings the same way.
The interesting thing about people that are really difficult, and that is their lifestyle, is they don't stay in situations very long because they are very aware that they're not tolerated after a while, or that they're sort of ostracized, and they move on. Most often people like that fall out of that given situation, if we can only be patient enough sometimes. It's interesting that you asked the question about how often do we run into difficult people at our dances, and I would put the question to you, how many of you have served on the dress committee for the club? And you have to choose you have to choose the style of the club costume. Oh, that's a real eye-opener there, isn't it? Yeah, it really is, and that's always interesting, and that takes a lot of diplomacy too. But people that are generally difficult all the time are not the people who come to things like this that would learn something or sort of increase their knowledge on how to deal with difficult people. They move on to other activities because life is difficult for them in almost every avenue, so they don't seem to stick around to anything very long. So if we are patient enough, they do sort of fall out.
And the other thing is, even if you don't have difficult people in your club, we're all difficult at one time or another. So even the nicest... Well, not everybody in the room has that problem.
We don't really have difficult people in our club, and in any of the clubs that we have. The difficulties come up with the odd occasion when we have a dancer complain about the abilities of another dancer. And a couple of years ago, we actually had one lady that had been asked to not come to our plus night. I'm sorry, but she just couldn't dance plus. And we don't know where she went because she didn't come back to our mainstream night. So we don't know what happened to her. And one other lady who people complained about her constantly, and all of a sudden she'd missed a few weeks, and I got a card in the mail saying, I think it was health or something, that she was going to be away for a few weeks, and she wanted to let me know, and she never came back. So I don't know. But suggestions, anybody, how do you deal with people who complain about how other people dance?
I'm Steve, and the way we've done it in the past on one of the clubs I belong to, and it happens to be a challenge club, but if you get 3 complaints, you're asked to leave. And until you can meet the level, you aren't asked not to come back. Now that sometimes doesn't work real good down at the lower levels, but it does work at a challenge club. One of the difficult issues we have though is when you do have to ask somebody to leave. Usually what they do is take a couple of the board members, dance with that person and see if they're dancing to the level. If they're dancing in a reasonable manner, that's one thing. If they're really dancing below the level, they're usually asked to leave. They're given their money. It's suggested that they take a class or a workshop, and usually given somewhere to do that. I don't always find that to be a very pleasant task to have to deal with.
Yeah, I don't think it is either. I think that when you ask someone to change their situation, you have to be able to offer them a solution. Challenge is a little bit different than mainstream or plus or even a basic dance, where this is primarily a more social activity. And I think we all have levels of skill, and I think we all have good nights and bad nights. My experience has been that a good dancer is usually a gracious dancer and has patience, and the other ones will come along. But it is one of those things, too, I feel, that everybody sort of finds the most comfortable place for them to be eventually. I don't know of a dancer who continues to put himself in a dance situation where he just can't. He eventually will find a program at which he dances comfortably.
Actually, at our club, we have had not just one couple, but several people who ended up at our club and staying at our club for several years, who it didn't matter what John called. If it was a left allemande or a right and left grand, they would mess it up. And never mind a spin chain the gears. And our club actually declined by about 3 squares over that time. And the board finally decided to ask them not to come back. And that really upset John because he thinks square dancing is for everybody, and somebody should be in the area should be calling it a level they can dance. And he went to the board and he said, if you're going to do this, you need a rubric. You need to say what is a good dancer, what is not a good dancer, so that, his point being that several people who have been longtime members of the club and on the board for years can't dance worth squat either. And if you start kicking out the people you don't like and who can't dance, when are you going to start kicking out the people you like who can't dance? You have to be consistent. So I don't know if that really answered anybody's question, but we have the same problem too.
Well, I think it's universal. I think almost all of us have encountered that at one time or another. We all handle it a little bit differently. I do feel like you do, that we have to be solution oriented, and it has to be a win-win. And maybe there isn't another place to go for them. Maybe they're really good at decorations, or maybe they really do a good job on the newsletter. Let's sort of channel the energy someplace else, and keep them, because they could very well be very productive for the club.
Mary McCravey from St. Louis area. Been in it a long time. My husband always says, a really good dancer is a gracious dancer who can help a poor dancer through without saying anything. That takes a lot of ability, knowing your position and all of this kind of thing. And I think it's not the big things that get us, it's the little things that will sink you quicker than anything. And if we can help a person, I heard someone tell me just recently that they were rhythmically challenged. Have you heard that one? Well, we do a lot of teaching and other kinds of dance as well. And you have to remember a couple of things, that some people are very dominant left or very dominant right. And those people have a difficult time learning. A dominant right person will always turn the wrong way for a left allemande. Some things like that. If you will recognize some of the teaching techniques, and this is something that callers have to do, they have to work on some of these things a little bit harder. It's true, some people can never square dance. It took me years to realize square dancing is not for every person in the world. There's some who just can't make it, but most can, and it takes some work, cooperation, and lots of patience.
Yeah. We do know from studies that we all learn in different ways. Some of us learn by hearing, some learn by seeing, and some learn kinesthetically. They have to actually do the movement. So many callers, and I'm not all of them, and some of them never even heard that theory, but we always have a square that comes out and shows the next move that we're going to do. And we say the name of the move, we show it, we actually have them move through it. So we've sort of tried to answer everybody's needs, so they hear it and they see it and they've actually moved into it. Because it's going to hit somebody at some point, because we all learn, we all have different strengths in how we learn. We don't all learn the same way. You're absolutely right. And it's recognizing that and helping them and being a little bit patient about the whole process and tolerant.
I agree. If you have a class, and this has worked with a couple of people who I thought were so sweet and were driving everybody crazy because they had danced quite a long time and had forgotten basic and mainstream. I went to them on my own and begged them to be angels. And they did a whole season, came early, and they started to remember things they had forgotten at the same time we really needed them. I mean, they completed another square. Sometimes that can be a win-win if you do have a class. If they go back an angel for you, they remember some things too. So sometimes that's an answer if you do have a class.
We have one person in our club who will and never will be in rhythm and hear the beat. But she dances. Her husband tolerates it. He had to give up round dancing because she just walked all over his feet. And so he gave that up, but they can still square dance, and she's a loyal, one of the hardest workers in the club, and she enjoys it. Her out of step does not interfere with the rest of the square because she's always there when she should be, whether it's the right or the wrong foot.
Call it this.
With your face covered, yeah. We've had clubs say to us about people that needed to be asked to leave, and when they've said it to me, my comment is, that is not my job. The club has to make that decision, and I've said to several clubs, if you want to make that decision, it's your decision, but you also have to tell them. But remember, you've got people that are here a long time that can't even dance as well as these people you're asking. One of our clubs, there is a couple, they will never ever, I don't know if they ever did dance well, but they are never going to dance well. On a given night, she can't do an Alaman left, but she has a heart of gold, would never say a cross word about anyone, and no one would ever think to ask her to leave, so how can you ask someone else to leave?
I agree that this is not the partner's job. If it's a caller-run club, then it is the caller. We probably would discuss it, my husband and I, as to how would be the best way to do it. But it would be his presentation and not mine.
Well, we're in all club-run clubs, and the board can handle it.
Brings a lot to mind of experiences that in our club that I belong to we've experienced as well. Thinking now, some years later, there are dancers in our class program this year that we did have to, for reasons of inability to grasp it the first time around, to please, go to another training group or maybe step out and so on. And they did go to another training group, and their feelings were hurt, and there was sadnesses expressed. But they're back, and they're dancing again, and they're back in the beginners, but they're still there. So there are some time can heal things. So it's a tough one. And all that we've heard and expressed is also true, but sometimes we can reclaim them.
Does anybody else have anything they want to say? Gail and Betty, do you have last-minute comments that you want to finish up with?
Another story? No, I don't have another story. I have a camping story, but that's... Just to sort of echo again some of the things I talked to you about before, when you are talking to someone who is difficult, be sure to watch the body language, and you'll know if your point is getting across. Because if they're really closed, you can talk all night and it won't make any difference. And if they are open and accessible to what you're saying, and their body is going to tell you that, you'll know that your message is being heard, and that's more important than anything else. And probably when you have something difficult to discuss with someone who is being a little obstinate, that privacy be respected, because it is not everybody's business. However, when someone is being difficult, they usually like to have an audience. So it is important to try and remove them, or get both of you in a situation where it doesn't become the entertainment of the evening, because it's never the same story the next morning as it was what occurred the night before. So those are kind of things that you want to just sort of be aware of happening around you, that you afford them the opportunity to calm down and get to the bottom of what's really bothering them, and really listen to what they're saying. And most often it's really not a big deal, and it can be handled easily. So it's respect, and they're fearful, and they're afraid they're not respected, and they're angry as a result of it, and so you need to sort of give that all back to them, and it will blow over. It's very easy to handle that way.
I had one thing that I wanted to express, and it perhaps isn't so much dealing with people as it is with you in your everyday work with the people, and that is to be sure that you have the facts straight, because whether you realize it or not, they think whatever you say is law and order, and they will quote you on things. So weigh your words, and don't say anything that you're not absolutely sure of. Don't pass on any information, because if you don't know for sure that that is the truth, then it's actually gossip, and you don't want to be guilty of that. So just remember, in the attitude message that you picked up at the back door, it says, remember that 90% of what happens and the situation depends on how you react to it. So anyway, just we know that you're all going to do a great job. We know you already have, and we just wish you the best in future years. And if we have another panel like this, you can be up here and express yourself.
I have a problem I want your help with. My name is Peggy. On the second page, it says never repeat gossip or hearsay information. Be sure of your facts. My partner, and I'm sorry, it's him, but sometimes he exaggerates the facts. Sometimes he, I don't know, I feel like he's afraid people won't believe him if he tells it really. So the next time he tells it, it's changed a little. The next time he's more than that. I don't know how to deal with it. And I know you said you can't change somebody else. You have to do it yourself. I need help on how to react to those kind of situations.
Good. We had a comment up here that you just changed.
Is this person a good storyteller? Really? Is he a good storyteller? Oh, sometimes people who tell stories, this becomes a story to tell, because I grew up with storytelling, and the stories change a little bit. So if he's a good storyteller, he may be improving on the story. Whatever, fishing story, or the accident that happened last week, or my cooking, or whatever,
My question to you is your reaction that you're embarrassed by this? Okay. Well,
I said, you're exaggerating again, and he backed down. But
well, see if you all agree with me or not. I would venture a guess that most everyone that knows him well knows that he exaggerates. And it's an accepted trait, and it sort of blows right by them. And that maybe it might bother you more than it bothers everybody else that you think is listening. And quite truly, here we go right back to it, it has to start with you. And it might just be something that you're more sensitive to than other people are. Is there agreement with that, or okay?
I was just going to echo the same thing, is the embarrassment need not be yours, because it's not your story, it's not your performance, it's not your words, it's not your behavior. And the individual, your partner, spouse, or whomever is the individual you love, because that's who they are, and half the reason that you love them is because they are the way they are. So it's sometimes difficult, but it's not yours to have. The embarrassment is not yours. It's not your
yours
behavior.
To bear.
Yeah.
It truly is. My mother told me once that the things that you admire most about somebody are the things that are going to drive you the most nuts, too. They truly are. So that's not the case. Well, never mind then. So, but sometimes you have to really think about when it really bothers you. Is it because it's your own sensitivity to that situation, or is it everybody else's reaction? And then put it in the proper perspective. You're also well adjusted. I don't know why you even bothered to show up today.
Let's all give Betty and Gail a big hand. And our last program for the partners is at 3:30. And I have no idea till I look at my schedule where.
Well, maybe. If they haven't changed it.
Yeah, if they haven't changed it.
It's Salon 2.
Salon 2, 2 rooms down. Okay, thank you.
Maybe. Thank you.